everyone. How are you? I am doing great because I am getting ready to interview Nancy Norbeck. Nancy is just a whirlwind. She is a published author, she is a singer, she is a creativity coach. She is an actor. She also runs programs for kids and adults, an intuitive writing course. She is just amazing and such an inspiration, and she is so encouraging. I am just so excited to get started for this interview and just talk about all the cool, interesting things that she does. So here we go. I am here with Nancy Norbeck. That's how you say your last name, right? Norbeck.
Yes.
I wasn't sure. And I have been so excited to talk to you because you just do so many things. So you're an author, a published author, you have a novel, you're a creativity coach, a singer, an actor, and a former teacher, and you have the Follow Your Curiosity podcast and website. So there are just so many things I want to ask you and talk to you about. You are just so interesting. I don't even know where to start. So do you want to start us off somewhere? You do so many things.
Why don't we start with the podcast just because it's the easiest thing to encapsulate, I think, and then we'll see where we land. I started the podcast a little bit over a year ago because as a creativity coach, one of the things that I really love to hear are like people's stories of how they got started doing things, who influenced them, who discouraged them, who encouraged them, what they had to do to get where they're going. First of all, I just love stories like that. I love hearing about the people who get the phone call from mom and dad saying, make sure that he plays sports. And then as soon as they're off the phone, saying, yes, we'll do that. Absolutely, sir, we'll do that. Turn around and say, we've got this play we think you might like to try out for.
Yeah.
I've heard enough stories like that, read enough stories like that I thought, I'll bet there are really cool stories like that everywhere. And I'd love to tell them. That was literally all I had when I started it. It has given me the chance to talk to some of the most interesting people, including people that you've never heard of, some that you might have, maybe someday more of them that you might have. But I love the stories of people you've never heard of because those I think are often the most interesting and the ones that we can relate to the most. I originally wanted it to cross over with travel, and my idea was that I would use it as an excuse to travel everywhere, kind of be like, hi, I'm in Montreal and I'm talking to this person who does this thing. And as soon as I'm done, I'm going to ask them who else I should talk to. And I'm going to go and talk to the next person who might be in, Saskatchewan or Detroit or Cleveland or wherever, and use it as an excuse to travel on top of hearing all of these stories. The travel part hasn't quite happened yet, but
oh my gosh, but that's
Skype
amazing.
helps.
Yeah, but that would be so cool. I could definitely see you doing that. I listened, obviously I didn't get to listen to all of them because you just have so many. I think you have 30 something, right?
Yeah, it's like 33, 34 right now.
So I listened to quite a few. And one thing that I loved is you actually post some of your coaching, which is so cool. So how did you start doing that? Like, when did you get into the creative coaching?
Actually, one thing that I think is really interesting with the podcast, I thought that I would have lots of people volunteering to be coached for those calls. The reason that there was only 3 is that despite the fact that I think they're really fascinating to listen to and who wouldn't want some free coaching, it was a lot easier to find guests than it was to find people who wanted to be coached. So if anybody who listens and wants some free coaching, I would love to throw some in there.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
So have you done coaching that you haven't posted then, that people are just like, oh, I don't want that posted?
No.
Okay.
The only one that I didn't post was one where we had to record it over a conference line and the sound was just so bad because she was on a speakerphone, and it broke my heart because it was a great call and it felt so universal to me, and I really wanted to share it, but there was just no way to salvage the audio into something that you could really hear. To your other question, I used to teach. And in 2009, in the recession, I lost my teaching job because the school decided that it didn't want an ESL program anymore.
Was that a public school, a high school?
It was a private school, and I taught middle school and high school kids.
Okay, gotcha. Oh, wow.
I mean, it felt like it was the right time to move on for me, like mentally. Recession, not the best time to move on in other ways, but that's okay. I guess it was January of 2011. I read a newsletter that I was on, and it had a link to some kind of creativity workshop or something. And I clicked through the link. It had all these like really cute illustrations and stuff, and I wanted to know more about the person who was doing it. So I clicked through that link. It turned out that it was Jill Bodonsky who put together the Kaizen Muse creativity coaching model. And as soon as I landed on her website, which had more of this cute, quirky stuff all over the place, she does these fabulous little, very, very Jill drawings is the only way I know how to describe them. As soon as the site loaded, I took one look at it and said, oh my God, I found my people.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
like I often say, you know, you take the teacher out of the classroom, but you can't take the classroom out of the teacher.
Oh, yeah.
And it was sort of like coaching and the creative stuff. Like I had always wanted to teach a creative writing class while I was teaching.
Wow, you did?
I wanted to. I
Oh,
so
wow.
wanted to. And they would never let me do it. So instead, I just always included a creative writing unit with all of my ESL students.
Oh, okay.
And there were people who would say, ESL students can't do creative writing. And I was like, that's like saying ESL students can't do breathing. I don't understand.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
there was this whole thing where it was like, I wanted to do that kind of stuff and wasn't allowed to.
I
And
love that
then,
you found that loophole though, that you were like, "Well, I'm
yeah,
gonna do a unit on it." Like,
it's
that's
like,
so great.
damn it, I am going to find a way. I had to do a teaching practicum for my MFA. Well, I was teaching, so I had a ready-made classroom. It's like, gee darn, you guys are paying for this degree. Going to do my practicum here. You can come in. Somebody has to observe me. You can come in and watch. And look, my ESL students can do creative writing. It didn't make a difference.
Oh.
When I saw the coaching page, like I had no idea that there was such a thing as creativity coaching. And I thought, this is all the stuff that interests me, that I want to encourage in people, that I think makes life worth living. And my God, I can go and I can take a class and learn how to actually help people do this stuff without just winging it and saying, well, here's what works for me. Because, you know,
Right.
everybody's different. I don't really know how this process works all that well. I can just take my best guesses on my own experience. I think I really knew the second I saw it that I was going to sign up, because there was a new session starting a week or two later. It was a Monday. I think I signed up on Friday, and it was just to make myself feel like I'd thought about it. You know, like, yes, I have considered this and
Uh-huh.
whatever. But yeah, I just thought, yeah, you know, I'd found another job and whatever, but it was an office gig and
Mhm.
not really what I had in mind, and not really doing the stuff that is the best parts of me. It's funny because I want to say I took it like a fish to water, but I don't know how to compare myself to anybody else who's ever taken that. I think when you self-select in, you're much more likely to land in that territory. I mean, it's possible that you could be like, oh no, this isn't for me.
But you felt
It
drawn
just
to it.
felt, yeah, it felt so right from the second I looked at it. It was like,
Wow.
really, why am I waiting a week? Just here's my money. Let's go.
Yeah, and so you do a lot of things like that. So you do the creativity coaching, and then you also run an intuitive writing course, and you do a program for adults and kids for the finding your superpower. Are these all different things, or do they tie in, or are they different,
So
completely different programs?
they're totally different things.
Okay.
I haven't run intuitive writing in a couple of years, though. I've been thinking about doing it again. That's a course for people who haven't really done a lot of writing and kind of want to get their feet wet in a more structured environment. Structure is important. You know, it's one of the things that keeps you doing the thing you want to do, which is why sometimes the prescription when you're blocked creatively is go take a class.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm also pretty free flowing with it. Despite the fact that we're all different, we all have the same blocks though, and the blocks tend to work in the same way. It still works better if you kind of follow the thing that works for you. So a lot of that class is owning what it means to be a writer and owning that title for yourself and being comfortable with calling yourself a writer. And then just different ways to play with writing and experiment with writing and see what happens. And really the play is the important part, because if we turn it into work, then it becomes a chore and it becomes standards bound, and then that just gets in everybody's way. But if you can play with it and see what works for you, maybe you like writing this kind of thing more than this other kind of thing. Maybe it turns out
Mhm.
you really do well writing memoirs, or maybe you're a poet and you had no clue. I think that was what, like a 4 or 5 week class, which is plenty. And you know, it has the whole group aspect. So
That
yeah,
one
some of the
was in
experiments.
person then?
No, that one we did on a Facebook group and on a conference
Oh.
line.
Oh, great. Okay, very
Yeah.
cool.
So it was pretty interactive, and we all got to share things and hear things and be surprised by what everybody else did and by what we did, which was really, really cool. I like helping people find their feet with something like that, because I think that we make writing really, really intimidating, and it shouldn't be.
Yes,
It should
absolutely.
be as
Mhm.
much fun as, you know, going out and just singing a song with your friends at a birthday party.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And to go back to your point too of just giving people permission to say, I'm a writer, because I always hear people are, I'm an aspiring this, I'm an aspiring that. And
Nah, you are that.
taking on that label. I remember one time, so I do hula hooping, so I'm a hooper, but years ago, yeah, so I saw your picture on your
Is that the
website of the,
proper title?
yes, a hooper. I saw your picture picture on your website of the fire hooper, and I do fire
Mhm.
hooping. So I was like,
Oh,
oh,
that's
that's so
awesome.
cool. Oh my gosh. So like 10 years ago, I was in Central Park and this woman was doing hooping tutorials and lessons or whatever. And I was there. Someone came up to me and they're like, oh, you're a hooper? And I was like, oh no, I'm just trying to be. I'm an aspiring hooper. And the teacher looked at me and she goes, no, you are a hooper. You do it every day.
Yes.
You're going to the classes. You are that. And I was like, am I? What? And I think people don't know what makes them something, what makes them a writer, what makes them a singer. I think people don't understand what makes them that. They feel like they have to be published to be a writer, or
Yeah.
they have to have art hanging in a gallery to be an artist. And even then, some people still don't call themselves an artist. And I'm an aspiring artist. So that's so
Yeah.
true, to give people that permission.
Yeah. And one of my favorite stories, one of my students in that class who took it a couple of times sent me, I think she sent me an email, though it might have been in the group. She said, I was at the grocery store today and I was talking to the cashier and I said, I'm going to go home and write some things. And the cashier said, oh, so are you a writer? And she said, yes, I am.
Oh, I love
It's
that.
like cheering. It's like, go
Yes.
you. Yes, you are. It's fun and it's so satisfying to watch people own that and see what they can do and see what they can even invent on the spot. I mean, I have an exercise that I do with them where we start with, any random object. So I have this tiny little external hard drive sitting here, and it could be as
Uh-huh.
simple as that, where you look at it and you kind of say, yeah, okay, it's a hard drive. It's got a cable on it. It's this size and whatever. And then I have them pretend that they've never ever seen it before
Oh, okay.
and say, okay, if you had never seen this before, what would you think it was?
Oh,
What, and in fact,
interesting.
not even what would you think it was, just what would it be if it were something else?
Right.
And then we like build a whole story around it just by asking questions about this thing. And we did that on a call one time. And this woman went from, her remote control to the bridge of an alien spaceship with these kangaroo-like aliens. And it's so much fun to listen to that because you could just hear the wonder in her voice. You could practically hear her thinking, where is this even coming from? But that's the whole point of the exercise. You
Right.
can find an idea anywhere if you're just willing to take something and turn it on its head and look at it a different way. And there she was. I mean, I don't think she ever really wrote the story of the kangaroo aliens, but it was enough for the exercise and it was enough to prove the point.
That's really cool. So you have fun exercises like that in your different
Mm-hmm.
programs? Okay.
Yeah. And then you had asked about the adults and the kids. The
Yeah.
Find Your Superpower is just for kids.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Because there are a lot of kids out there who are in middle school. They're just kind of, floating through, doing their thing, but they haven't really
Mhm.
figured out like what they're interested in or what they might be interested in. I don't believe in putting undue pressure on middle school kids, but at the same time, a lot of parents do.
Mhm.
Or even if they don't realize that they do, that's what they're doing. There are kids who just need to be in an environment that does not include mom and dad putting tons of pressure on
Mhm.
them, that lets them go and explore whatever crazy thing they want to look at. It doesn't necessarily mean that like the thing that we start with is the thing that we land on. It could be that you start out and you think that you want to do robotics.
Mhm.
So we explore robotics, and maybe, your homework assignment is to buy an at-home robot kit and put it
Okay.
together and see how you like it. And if that works really well for you, then maybe we keep going farther down that road. If it doesn't, okay, what did you like about it? What did you not like about it? And see where that takes us, which is why follow your curiosity literally is like the core directive here. But a lot of the time, parents mean really well, but they can exert pressure intentionally and unintentionally. And sometimes kid just needs to be in an environment where they can do that with somebody who can ask the right questions and guide them along a path to help them figure out, maybe it's this, let's try it. Maybe it's that, and see where they end up. And then they've got a little bit of a sense of direction, which may make mom and dad feel better than it makes the kid feel. But if the kid
Mhm.
is really interested in that thing, it'll take off on its own because kids are curious.
Even on the opposite end of that, I feel like, so you're talking about these parents that put a lot of pressure on their kids and maybe are overly interested. But then I feel like on the other end too, I'm a social worker, and I've worked in mental health clinics and I've worked in all these different capacities with kids. And I've run into the parents that just don't care. They're not interested in their kids' lives. They're not interested in what their
Yeah.
kids are interested in. So you are someone that these kids can go to that you're actually interested in hearing from
Mhm.
them and listening to them. And a lot of kids actually don't have that. I've seen it with my own two eyes. A kid saying, "Oh, mom, look what I made." And the mom doesn't even look up from her phone, or
Yeah.
the dad isn't even there, or he doesn't look up from his phone, or he's like, "Oh, cool." Like kids don't even always have somebody that's interested in them at all.
Yeah, it can go all sorts of places on that spectrum. There's definitely a spectrum with parents. I have seen all kinds of parents, both when I was in the classroom and when I was tutoring on my own. It's all over the place. Some parents manage to hit the right balance and have the kind of relationship with their kids where it's not an issue and they totally encourage the kid to do the stuff that they are interested in. And then there are varying degrees of the rest of them.
So you
So,
could be that stable person for that child.
mhm,
What age group do you work with?
that program is mostly designed for middle school.
Okay.
And then I do individual coaching for adults.
Gotcha. So you have a lot going on. You do a lot of different things
I
with
do.
coaching and class because you also work a day job.
I do.
So how do you find that kind of time? And what is your day job?
My day job is I'm an editor at a university. So that takes up a good chunk of time. And the rest of
Mm.
it, I squeeze in the evenings, on the weekends, and try to schedule the best way I know how and kind of hope that it all works out.
So you kind of work 7 days a week then.
Yeah, that's
Wow.
true. That's
Wow.
true. I mean, I try to make sure that I still have time to breathe.
Yes, absolutely.
Sanity and sleep are important.
Oh, yeah. And do you feel like though, because people always say that phrase, like, oh, when you find what you love, it doesn't feel like work. On the weekends or at night when you're doing these different coachings and classes, do you feel like you're working or are you just having fun or is it a mix of both?
It's a mix of both, but it's the kind of work that doesn't feel like a chore. Doing the podcast, I absolutely adore. Putting the podcast episodes together can sometimes feel more like a chore, but having
Oh,
the actual
yes.
conversations is a blast. And
Uh-huh.
I just, you couldn't pay me enough to give it up. So I fit it in, but I also, know what the limit is for how many of these can I do at one time and how many of those can I do at one time. And it's a balance, but so far it seems to work.
And so when did you get into all of this? You interview people for your podcast, you have your coaching sessions, you do improv acting, you do singing in a choir, right? I mean, how did you get into all of these things?
Well, okay, so I'll start with the earliest one, which is the singing in a choir. I think I was about 4 when my parents took me to the little kids' church choir rehearsal for the first time.
Oh.
And both of my parents are avid choral singers. I have gone through lapses in my life. I don't think either one of them ever has.
Oh,
And
wow.
and there were periods where it felt a little bit more like a chore. The Glee Club in my elementary school was a thing where everybody auditioned, and if she wanted you, you were in, and it wasn't a would you like to be in? It was turn up at this time,
Oh,
which some of us decided was kind of unfair and that it should be your choice to be there.
right.
And so we raised this question in probably not the best of all possible ways because we were elementary school kids, and caused a big kerfuffle. And I think my parents thought that I was never going to sing again. And it wasn't that I didn't want to sing. It was just that I didn't want to be told that I had to.
Yes.
I didn't want anybody to be told that they had to. And we all survived, and that was great. And I've never stopped singing, except for a couple of periods here and there where I'll go for a while and suddenly I'll be
Mhm.
like, whoa, I haven't done any singing and that's not good. And I don't feel like I should. And I need to go sing because some part of me is just
Mm.
not getting what it needs. I literally chose my college for the choir, which is insane.
Wow, really?
Yeah. And when I was teaching and kids would be going through the whole college application process, they would say to me, well, how many schools did you apply to? Because they would tell me they were applying to, 10 or 15 or 20 schools. And I'd
Oh,
think,
wow.
that's crazy. And then they would say, well, how many did you apply to? And I would say, okay, so don't tell the college guidance people this. I applied to one. And
Wow, you really put all your eggs in that basket.
I really did. And it frustrated my dad. He had all of this vacation time and everything, and he would have taken me anywhere to see whatever school I wanted to see.
Oh,
But I had already decided that I wanted to go to his school because we'd been up
wow.
to hear the candlelight services and I'd heard this choir so many times. And I was like, I have to go sing in that
Oh.
choir. It wasn't because I thought they had a really great English program. It wasn't because of where the campus was. It was the choir. I applied early decision. It really literally did not hit me until the envelope came in the middle of December, how much trouble I was in if it didn't say what I wanted it to
Right, right.
say.
But did it? You got in?
It did. I got
Oh,
in, and it was such a
wow.
relief because all of a sudden I thought, oh
Oh
man, all
my
the other
gosh.
schools have January 1st deadlines, and I could be,
Yeah.
frantically filling out applications from now until the 1st of January. This was back before you had online applications and all
Right.
of that. So it would have
Yeah.
been typing up how many applications, because even if you
Mhm.
did the Common App, it was still, unless you put it on the photocopier, which I don't think my dad would have let me do. I mean, when I got in, it was such a massive relief.
Oh my gosh.
And it's funny because it was only a massive relief because I'd only realized like 10 seconds before I opened the
You're like, what
envelope.
if this says no? Then your whole
Yeah,
life plan is just
I'm in so much trouble. And then it didn't hit me again until I went to audition for the choir. And it's like, so I'm here.
right, because then you
What
have
if I
to get
don't
into
get
the
it?
choir. Yeah, you got to step one. You still have that big step two.
I know it's so funny to me now because,
Wow.
I think I was just 17, 18. I didn't know
Mhm.
any better. I didn't know to be any more worried than that, which is
Right.
probably what let me do it,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know?
absolutely. I feel like teens have that mentality like, "Oh, yeah, that'll be fine. That'll work.
Yeah.
That's
And
good."
and also, I mean, I had been up there so many times and I had talked to the choir director multiple times
Oh,
because my
okay.
mother had taken a summer class with him. I already felt like I knew him, which probably made it feel like more of a sure thing than it actually was.
Mhm.
But yeah, I went in, I auditioned.
Wow.
Mercifully, I got in. I mean, I could have ended up in the chorale instead, which certainly would have still been a great experience. And it would have been possible to switch to the chapel choir later because people moved all the time. So
Mhm.
it's not like the world would have ended. I'm sure I would have at the very least ended up in the chorale. It was great the way it was. It is funny because I've talked to Bill Payne multiple times. I interviewed him last year for the podcast. I told him this story because I was like, I don't think you know like the degree to which my whole experience at Bucknell hinged on getting into your choir. And I also told him that we all used to joke that the audition was as much a personality audition as a talent audition because we were all
Mm.
the same kind of crazy. We're like, yeah, only the right kind of crazy people can get into this choir. And he said, oh, that's totally true.
Oh, that's
Like,
hilarious.
okay. That was such a phenomenal experience. His choirs are so
Wow.
good and you learn to be so precise. And I knew when I graduated that I had just been spoiled rotten for 4 years and that it would be
Wow.
so hard to find something like that somewhere else. I've found other choirs that I've enjoyed, but
Mhm.
nothing quite like that. If I don't do it for
Wow.
too long, I just suddenly know. It's like, I need to go do this thing.
Mhm. Wow,
So
well, that's
yeah, that one's
amazing.
always
What an
been
amazing
really
experience.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sang the Fare Requiem last year with a church choir, the church that's right down the street from me, that has a regular Sunday morning choir and then they have a concert choir. So they do usually a bigger piece in the spring. This year, it's a bunch of smaller pieces, and with coronavirus, I have no idea what will
Oh
happen to
gosh, I
choir.
know, I know.
When I went in there and sat down, I thought, I did this piece with Bill Payne at Bucknell, and it's not going to be the same. And are you going to be
Mhm.
disappointed because it's not going to be the same? And it's not the same. But that choir pulls out the stops and hires a chamber orchestra, which we
Oh.
did not have at Bucknell. And when you do a piece like that
Oh.
with an orchestra, it makes an immense difference. And for a totally unauditioned choir, it does actually a really, really good job. And so that Sunday morning when it all came together, it's like, oh yeah, this is why I'm here.
Oh, that's so
So
magical.
yeah, it's magical is a very, very good word for it. And it's
That's what
proof
it
that you
sounds
can make
like.
something great with what other people would look at and call nothing.
Mhm.
That's important. The acting I don't do as consistently. I've kind of done it off and on over the years. And I just played around with improv again last year. The Princeton Adult School has classes for adults, as the name would imply. And they did like a 101 and a 102 class in the fall and the spring. So I did that. I had done some acting classes eons ago, about 20 years ago. And I always loved
Oh.
doing the improv. And even when I was teaching, there was always a day when the teachers could do something completely different than their actual field. There was an English teacher who would always do a Caribbean music class and stuff
Oh,
like that.
wow.
And I always did an improv class because I was like, yeah, let's come make stuff up and have fun.
Oh, that's so
So
fun.
yeah, and I think improv, honestly, one of the key rules of improv is that you have to say yes and. Because if you throw
Mm.
no, if you contradict your partner, there's nowhere for that moment to go.
Mhm.
I've really come to believe that yes and is not just a great improv rule, it's a great rule for life.
How
You
so?
say yes to the things that come your way. There are things that you just know you should not do under any
Right.
circumstances. Get into the car with the stranger who pulls up on the side of the road that you've never
Uh-huh.
seen before. Don't do that. but but somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I'm doing this art show, do you want to put something in it? Why not say yes?
Yeah, exactly.
What's
People always say
what's the worst that can
no
happen?
out of fear. And something I wanted to actually talk to you about too, that kind of segues into it, is on your website, you call yourself a queen fraidy cat. So that struck me because I always call myself a scaredy cat because I travel with my sister and I go to all these different countries and I'm scared of everything. And my sister one day was like, you know, you travel around the world, you do all these different things, but you're like a little old lady. You're scared of everything. You don't want to do anything. But so I wanted to talk to you because how do you get over those fears? And what are you afraid of?
That is such an interesting question because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about my own trip to New Zealand and Australia 3 years ago. I
Mm,
went for 4 weeks, 2 weeks in each country, totally on my own, except
wow.
when I had a friend to stay with near Brisbane because my excuse to do a trip like that. I grew up with the parents who were like, "Oh no, 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 you save your money and you do all of those things when you retire."
Right.
And so I felt better having an excuse to give people. But anyway, a friend of mine was getting married over there on Valentine's Day. So I was like, all right, I'm going. And I mean, I really was not afraid on that trip. That kind of stuff doesn't scare me. I just went to London and Scotland in October on
Oh,
my own.
wow.
I mean, there are places I would not go on my own. I
Right.
want to go to Africa. I have a friend in South Africa. I would not go to South Africa by myself,
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
just because I don't know the territory well enough to stay out of
Mhm.
trouble. Don't go borrow in trouble. I mean, I just went wherever I felt like going, did what I felt like doing. And my one Airbnb host, I stayed with this older couple up on North Island, and they invited me to have dinner one night, and their daughter and son-in-law were coming over. So they were asking me questions. And the husband and the couple I was staying with said, brave girl. And I was like, really? No.
Oh,
It's like
wow.
I'm in an English speaking country.
Uh-huh.
I have my own car, so I don't have to deal with other people, worrying about who's going to take me somewhere or anything like that. But honestly, most of the places that I've ever been, people are really friendly and helpful, and it's never been an issue. Whereas if I go on a group tour with a bus that if it's Tuesday, it must be Belgium and all of that kind of crazy stuff, I will want to kill people by the end of the week.
Oh,
So to me, that is much, much harder
right.
because then you get into the whole culture that is afraid of everything. And it's just
Uh-huh.
like, no, it's okay. It's London. You can walk around. You'll be fine. If you get lost, ask somebody. Also,
Mhm.
now we have iPhones. You're not going to get lost.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff doesn't scare me. Maybe it should scare me more than it does, but it doesn't scare me. But no, the Queen Fraidy Cat is is about my almost lifelong, absolutely debilitating panic attack style stage fright.
Oh, really? But you do the choir and everything and you have stage fright.
I have stage fright, but here's the thing.
Wow.
Choir is okay because choir is a crowd.
Oh,
It's
okay.
not just me. If it's just me, though, that
Mhm.
is a whole other kettle of fish. And it's only
Wow.
recently that somebody did say to me, yeah, that sounds a lot like a panic attack. I mean, I realized a while ago, maybe a year or two ago, that calling it stage fright is really understating it by a lot. It's
Okay.
not just being nervous. It is a full body involuntary reaction. It's one of
Mhm.
those weird moments. I don't know if you've ever had this happen where like your brain is totally calm and your body's freaking out.
Mhm.
It's like that. And so
Okay.
I could be standing there thinking, I'm not going to die. It's okay. Just chill. And my body essentially is like, yeah, no, actually, really, saber-toothed tiger's dead ahead, almost dead any second now.
Wow.
It's that divided. I mean, there was a
Mhm.
moment several years ago when I was trying to get myself over it, which of course you kind of have to get up and do it, where I was actually, and this is going to sound crazy because if you're singing, you would think you would be focused on that, but that was sort of on autopilot. And I remember standing in front of this crowd and thinking, if we could manage any of that, oh, I don't know, like diaphragm support that we learned back in choir and voice lessons, that would probably be great. And it became very clear that my body's answer was, you get what you get because I'm busy being
Oh,
terrified. And this
right.
is it. And I was kind of like, yeah, okay. You
Wow. So
know,
how do you work past that?
it's an interesting question. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
There are different philosophies and different ideas. And, one of my friends suggested something that I realized was really, really Kaizen Muse, which was singing in gradually smaller groups.
Oh,
Because
okay.
Kaizen Muse is all about tiny steps,
Mhm.
which is a lot of how you get around the fear responses in your head. So if I'm singing in a group of 20 people, just as an example,
Mhm.
and 2 of them aren't there, who cares? No big deal.
Right.
18 people, just as good as 20 people. And then maybe a month later, 2 more people leave. 16 people's not so bad, right? And if you keep gradually getting to the point, if you're down to 8 people I'd be reasonably comfortable with, but a little bit nervous about.
Yeah.
But if I did that and I got down to 8 people and that was okay because 10 people was all right and 12 people was all right and whatever,
Mhm.
then theoretically you could get down to 6 and 4 and 2. The problem is finding the way to make that work, because
Right.
assembling 20 people and then saying you're out in 2 weeks and it's got nothing to do with you, it's all about my crazy brain, is harder. So making the logistics to make that happen are a little bit trickier, but
Yeah, exactly.
you
So you
know,
know what kind of works for you, that kind of almost fear exposure almost.
kind of, yeah.
But to have it happen is a little bit of an obstacle.
It's a little bit of a logistical challenge, so it's
Yeah.
definitely still a work in progress, yeah.
Okay. But that's good you found what works for you at least.
Yeah, and there are other things that people do. I mean, famously for stage fright or general performance anxiety, depending
Mm.
on which label you prefer, people use beta blockers,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
which do block the whole heart racing response, which is a big part of what I have. So if you take
Mhm.
that out of there, because once your heart starts racing and you notice that your heart starts racing, which how can you not, then it just reinforces itself because you just keep panicking, because now you're like, oh man, this is really,
Yep.
really bad. It won't stop. It won't stop. And people have suggested things like, oh, just do some deep breathing exercises. And I've tried that. And I
Mhm.
laugh at people who say that now, because it's like, really? Are you kidding? That's crazy talk. If I do that, all I will notice is how fast my heart is beating, and that will
Uh-huh.
just make it worse. That is not the right thing to do here. Sometimes the conventional wisdom for stuff like that is dead wrong. And if anybody else has this kind of stuff, you got to find your own thing that works.
Yeah, well,
The
it's
thing
like
that
you said before, even with the classes, what works for one person, it's not going to work for somebody
Yeah,
else.
I've taken beta blockers and they do, and it's amazing. I picture it kind of like when you look at the solar eclipse and you have that sort of corona image around
Mm.
the edges. That's what the nervousness is like. It's like the huge
Mm.
flaming ball of crazy is blocked, and you
Okay.
just have that bit around the edges. And it's sort of interesting because you can kind of go, you notice it and you
Oh.
think, yeah, it's just like maybe the edges of my fingertips, kind of.
Uh-huh.
But I'm still breathing. I'm really pretty calm. This is nice. But I wouldn't want to take them on a regular basis, because
Right.
I think you could really get hooked on them, and that's not even technically what they're for.
Right, right.
So,
Okay.
but they have that lovely side effect. So that can be a tool too. But again, it's a medical thing. So approach with caution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And so I want to talk a little bit about your novel. So you
Mm-hmm.
are a published author. You have a book called The Silver Child.
I do.
And I read a little bit about it. I really want to read the book. I can't wait. It sounds so interesting. So you actually came up with the idea from a writing prompt.
I did.
Yeah, tell me about this. How did this come to life?
I, in the spring of 2007, applied to the MFA program at Goddard College. I had started writing again a couple years before, after a long hiatus where I really hadn't done much of it at all. I got to the point where I thought, I think I've done as much with this as I can figure out how to do on my own. And I
Mm.
also wanted the credibility of having an MFA so that I could
Mhm.
do the creative writing class I wanted to teach.
Yes.
And so I applied, I got in, and the Goddard's program is low residency. So I would go up to Vermont for a week in June and a week in January.
Oh,
And all of our workshops and all of that kind of stuff would happen in that week. And then we would all come home and do the rest of it through the mail. So you'd
wow.
have 5 packets worth of work that you would send in each semester. And every packet was like 3 weeks worth of stuff.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how the people on the faculty could turn this stuff around, because they would get, like 6 or 7 of these things all at one time, and I would
Mhm.
get it back in less than a week.
Oh,
It's like,
wow.
did you sleep at all after these came? How do you do this?
Wow.
And it was all postal mail, so not online, because then they don't
Right.
have to print it. They write all over it. You get the thing back, and you just sweat whether or not the postal service lets you down.
Sounds so
So,
risky.
yeah. So maybe a month before I started, I had this novel that I had started. I hadn't worked on it in a little while, and
Mm.
I didn't really want to, because I'd started to realize that it didn't really make any sense.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow.
So once I realized that, it's kind of like, I don't even know that I could make it make much sense. It makes internal sense, but it doesn't make sense if you're not
Uh-huh.
in the world of that book. So you'd have to suspend a lot of disbelief. I thought, I haven't really written anything. I don't feel like a writer, and I'm going to go start a writing MFA. This is nuts. I need to write something. And I didn't have any ideas, but there was a live journal community called The First Line that was based on the magazine of the same name. The magazine, I think on the cover, it's been a while since I've looked, has a first line. And the idea is you take that first line and you write a story from it, and then you send your story in. And if they like it,
Mhm.
they publish it. That's what's in the rest of the magazine, is the results of a previous first line. And you are not allowed to change it at all unless there is a blank line for you to fill something in. So the live journal community operated on the same rules, only you had a week instead, whatever. And I
Mhm.
had started a bunch of things just as little exercises when I started writing my own stuff rather than writing fan fiction, which is how I got my feet wet again. And so I thought, I'll go find a prompt there. And the one that I found was, the baby had been born with blank line.
Mhm.
And a lot of people probably would have filled in a disease or, some kind of condition or whatever. But my brain said a silver spoon in its mouth.
Wow.
And I thought, yeah, no, you can't do that. You cannot be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. It doesn't work like that. I sat down and I wrote the first page, which is still pretty much the same, the first page of the book.
Oh, wow.
I looked at it and I thought, well, that's interesting, because there was this doctor delivering this baby and
Mhm.
commenting on it and kind of looking back on it after time. And he had sort of an interesting voice. And I was like, well, I like you. That's cool. But you still can't be born with a silver spoon in your mouth. This makes no sense.
Hmm.
And I wrestled with it for, I don't know, maybe a couple of days. It might have been over a weekend. And it's funny because these moments always happen to me while I'm in the shower. I was in the shower at some point that weekend. Suddenly the magic question popped into my head, which was, but what if you were?
Hmm.
And it was just enough to change everything. It was like, okay, if you were, what would that mean?
Mhm.
Why would it be there? I don't know how this works for you, but for me, once those kinds of questions start popping up, it's like, I'm not letting this go, because
Yeah.
now it's churning around and it's moving and we got to see what happens. So that's how it started. And I wrote 17 pages
Oh,
and
wow.
I had no idea what it was.
Mhm.
And that was enough to make me feel like a writer again. And I thought, all right, I'm going to hang on to this. We're going to see what happens, because
Mhm.
I don't know what they're going to tell me when I go. Because I thought I was going to finish the book that I had already started when I got there. And
Uh-huh.
they said, oh, no, 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 no. You need to start something new.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
I thought, all right, I'm going to write a short story collection because it'll give me the chance to experiment with lots of different stuff, which is a very logical thought
Uh-huh.
that completely ignored the fact that I have never been anything like short-winded in my entire life. So I did manage to write a couple of short stories. I don't know
Mhm.
how long it would have been, but I kept this thing kind of in my back pocket because it was
Okay.
the semester while my grandmother, we were pretty sure not going to last very much longer. And
Oh.
my dad was having trouble with that. And I was just like, okay, I
Mm.
keep getting phone calls from him. I don't want to tell my dad I can't talk to him and whatever.
Right.
So I'm going to
Yeah.
keep doing what I can do. But if it gets to the point where I have a packet and I don't have anything to send in, this is what I'm sending.
Okay.
So I sent it in and I put in my letter, because we all have to write a process letter, which includes stuff like, my grandmother is in memory care because all of a sudden
Oh.
she doesn't have Alzheimer's, but you wouldn't know that to talk to her. And so this has been going on while I'm trying to do all of this stuff. And it's not really making excuses. It's just, here's what's going on in my life.
Yeah.
And I said to my advisor, Reiko Rizzuto, I said, here's this thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a short story. I don't know if it's a novel. I don't know if it's somewhere in between. I have no idea, but I am curious to hear what you think. And she wrote back with the phrase that really should have been apparent to me just because I know me, which was, this is not a short anything. and and then she said, but it could be a great thesis novel if this is what you wanted to do.
Oh my goodness.
Now, this was the third packet of the semester out of 5. So major decision moment,
Right. Yeah.
because I've already spent 6 weeks doing something else,
Mhm.
really
Oh,
technically
wow.
9 because the third packet was gone. So it's like, can I scramble up enough to make this work in time because I had never finished a novel before. So I was absolutely terrified that I would get through even 4 semesters, but really you're supposed to be done your draft by the end of the 3rd and not have anything finished.
That's scary.
It was terrifying because I really didn't want to have to pay for extra semesters. And how many extra semesters would it take? I'd never finished anything. Would it be 1? Would it be 2? Would it be 12? Who knows, But I decided to run with it just because I liked the beginning of it.
Wow.
And being on a teaching schedule at the time meant that I had breaks that I could use, and I had summer vacation and all of that, which helped a lot.
Yeah.
But that's how it came to be. And as you can see, it did get finished.
Yes,
Though
you
the
finished
first
it.
the first ending was pretty crappy, and she called me on it. She said, "I think you were just excited and wanted to be done." And I thought, yeah, I think you're probably right. I reworked it a lot in that last semester, and it still wasn't done. It wasn't anything close to perfect, but then perfect doesn't really exist in writing. But, we said to each other all the way through that semester, it doesn't have to be perfect. It only has to be good enough to graduate.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that thought kept us all going more than any other. Because if it had had to be perfect, we would have completely lost our minds.
And it probably wouldn't even be finished now.
Probably wouldn't. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun to write. I really, really liked the characters. And I was a rarity. I was one of the only people in my program who still liked her book by the time we finished.
Oh, really? That's
which then, and then that kind of made me feel like, what did I do wrong?
Right, that you're not like everybody else and hates your book.
Yeah, am I just weird? Have I screwed up? How did what's wrong here? Is it bad that I like my book? I don't know, but I still like my book. If I went back and looked at it again, as I did a couple of years ago, I would want to fix lots of things that I think are wrong now, but there's always something you can go back and fix. Even if you fixed everything again today, in another year, there would be more.
Oh, exactly. So how did you get to the point of it getting published then?
I published it myself because I got tired of going through the whole agent query process, and I decided to just get it out into the world.
Oh, wow.
Because people kept asking me about it, and it's like, you know what? Just do it. Just put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And these days, honestly, in terms of what you make, unless you are super lucky on either side of the publishing spectrum, it's not going to be a lot. I thought, well, let's see what I can do with this on my own. I sat down with Scrivener, which is my favorite writing tool. Part of the reason that I love it is that it'll let you format things for Kindle and for print. And it's pretty easy, though. Unfortunately, the book that I used to do it, which I think was called something like How to Format Your Book for the Kindle in an Afternoon, is for some reason no longer available on Amazon. But it's not that complicated, especially if you have a good set of instructions.
Okay.
So I sat down and I formatted it for the Kindle, and I compiled the whole thing and tested it on the Kindle Reader app and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
And I released it in June of 2015. It's funny because when you do that, because I thought, nobody's reading print books, we'll just do the Kindle edition. And then immediately people said, can I get a paperback?
Oh, wow.
And I said, you really want a paperback?
Oh my gosh.
Because I really didn't think anybody did. And they said, of course I want a paperback. I want you to sign it. I want to give copies to my kids or my grandkids or whatever. I said, okay, let me see what I can do. And Black Friday of that year, the paperback was available on Amazon for the first time.
Wow, that is so cool.
And I gotta say, it is wild when you actually hold it in your hands for the first time and you go, it's a book. It's a book. It's a book. It has my stuff in it. I wrote the stuff in the book. It has my picture and my name on it.
Oh my God.
It's a book.
Wow, what a feeling.
It's amazing. And a friend of mine did the cover design. She's a designer. And
I was going to ask about that. The cover is beautiful.
Yeah, I get so many compliments on the cover.
It's
and I
really
try
gorgeous.
to tell her every time because I feel like it's unfair that I hear them and she doesn't.
That's unfair. That's
yeah, but she did a fabulous job. It cracks me
beautiful.
up that there are reviews on Amazon where people are like, I thought this book was just about the teenage girl, but there's this old doctor guy and he's like not even on the cover. I'm like, did you look at the cover? Because yes, he is. Yes, he is. He's
Oh, that's
there.
funny.
I also think it's hilarious that they call him elderly when he's 62. I'm like, he's not 95. What?
Oh, poor guy. Poor guy.
He makes up for it in spirit, I'll tell you that. He goes through the mill. But yeah, so it's an unusual young adult book because it does have the two protagonists at wildly different ages. But
Yeah.
he's the doctor who delivered her, and she's the kid who has the magic powers. I put the paperback out, and then immediately somebody said, "What about the audiobook?" And I was like, "Oh, come on."
Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. So people were actually requesting all these things of you.
I was like, "Really? I'm just me.
Wow.
There's only so much I can do."
That's amazing though.
It
What
is
what a
amazing.
compliment.
Yeah. And yet I was just, it's kind of like,
You're like, leave me alone.
I would love for you to have an audiobook, but that would mean that I would have to spend more hours than I can count
Uh-huh.
sitting down by myself. And that was before I had a podcast and had a mic and all of that. And it's
Oh,
just like,
right.
oh
Right.
Lordy. And then I would have to edit all of it myself. And this book is 300 and some pages long. It's just like,
Wow.
no, I'm sorry.
That's a
There's
lot of work. Yeah.
just no way. That is too much work for one person. I mean, I
It's a
probably
lot.
would still be working on it because I think I would get so
Mhm.
tired of it. It would start to feel like such a chore. So I haven't even tried to make myself do that.
Maybe that you could do in your retirement.
There you go. Or
Yeah.
if, somebody who has better means than I do for that kind of thing gets interested and wants to buy rights to it and do the audiobook or turn it into a movie or something like that. But otherwise, sorry guys, there's not going to
Yeah.
be an
You've closed that chapter.
What would be kind of cool, because it is the two characters and their points of view alternate, would be to find somebody to read the doctor's part and I could read
Yeah.
the girl's part. Even that, I would still have to put it all together. It would
That's
just
tough.
be,
Mhm.
boy, yeah.
I have a friend who is a voice actor and he does all these different projects and it is almost like, I don't know, producing or directing a short film.
Yeah.
It's acting.
It is. It really is. And I've been fascinated by voice acting for a while, and I've talked to different people who actually know stuff about it. And a lot of the people who do audiobooks essentially are freelancers. They work for themselves. They record your book in their own home studio,
Mhm.
and they get paid for the time that actually goes into the finished book. It can take them so much longer to put
Right.
something together. I mean, and I think as you do more, you get better at it. So it takes you less time because you know how to avoid some of the pitfalls and everything, but
Yeah, exactly.
it's a lot of work
It is.
to
And
get those
you're doing
audiobooks.
so many different things. I would imagine you don't have the time to dedicate to that right now.
I don't even want to think about trying to
Yeah.
find the
Yeah.
time to do that.
But what is next for you? Because you do so many different things. Like, where are you headed?
Well, just the other night, while I was on the rower at the gym, which is apparently the other place where I get ideas, I was
You got to bring a
listening,
notebook with you in the shower and on the rower.
which is two of the places where that doesn't work very well.
I know.
I was listening to a Martha Beck podcast while I was on the rower, and I thought I should do a book group for Steering by Starlight.
Huh.
Have I ever done a book group before? No. Have I ever finished reading Steering by Starlight before? No.
Wow.
But I've always wanted to, and I think if I did it in a group, it would avoid the pitfalls that a lot of people have, where you stop reading when you get to the first exercise because you don't have time to do it or you're not sure how to do
Right.
it and
Yeah.
whatever. And I thought, for years now, I have wanted to have read this book.
Oh, wow.
Maybe this is a thing to do, just a small thing, like find, I don't know, 10 people, 20 people,
Mhm.
certainly not hundreds, and just meet online on Skype or Zoom or something once a week to talk about a chapter
Mhm.
and talk about exercises that we did and what happened and whatever. Because I feel like I'm not a Martha Beck coach, but I think I could facilitate a conversation and some insight into all of this stuff from my point of view that might be different than what a Martha Beck coach would do, and just see where we end up at the end of however many chapters it is. It's not a huge book.
Oh, that sounds
It's
really
not
cool.
intimidating, but yeah, I've been thinking about playing with
Wow.
that. I have no idea when I would start it. Certainly not before probably the end of April. I don't know where these people would come from. Maybe somebody who listens to your podcast, maybe somebody who sees an
Yeah.
Instagram post. Just give it a try, see what happens. Don't even know if I charged anything for it. I probably wouldn't charge very much. Maybe
Right.
like $25 or something.
Okay.
Just kind of see what happens and see where the energy goes with it. And,
Oh, that's
you know,
great. So you're always having
yeah.
these cool new ideas that lead you in all these different paths in life.
Yeah, it's dangerous sometimes because if you end up with 3 of them and they all seem to be
Uh-huh.
going in a different direction, what do you do? But this one just kind of materialized on its own. And I thought, okay, yes, and let's do that. Just have to figure
Yes.
out what that looks like and see if we can find anybody else who thinks it sounds like a good idea too. Yeah,
Wow.
we'll see.
Great. Your whole thing with your site, follow your curiosity, all your classes, your coaching, everything, you are interested in talking to people and even leading people to follow their curiosity. But I get all these questions from people that say, I don't have a purpose. I don't have any interests. I don't have any passions. How do you help people find their passion or their purpose? And how do you know that everyone has a purpose?
So I'm not an expert on purpose, but I will say that I really admit that I shamelessly stole the words follow your curiosity from Elizabeth Gilbert,
Okay.
who got them from a friend of hers. So I kind of feel like they're fair game. But there is a video with her somewhere, and for some reason, I always have a hard time finding it. I don't know if I ever bookmarked it, but she talks about how when she went to write The Signature of All Things several years ago, before she started it, she wanted to write something. She did not want to write something that was a memoir. She wanted to do something different, but she didn't know what it was. And that's when this friend said to her, follow your curiosity. What are you curious about?
Hmm.
I will admit I have not read The Signature of All Things, so I might describe it completely incorrectly from misremembering. As I recall, it's about a botanist, and
Okay.
she was curious about gardening, and she started
Mm.
exploring gardening and ended up in the world of botany, and that's where this character came from and where the book came from. When I heard that, I thought it's so genius because she was contrasting it with Follow Your Bliss. She's like, your bliss
Oh,
may or may not get you somewhere. But
right.
your curiosity, if you're willing to be curious and indulge your curiosity, will get you anywhere. It'll
Oh,
take you
wow.
places that you never even knew existed before. It'll open up things that you didn't know there were to be interested in or to work in or whatever. That's why working with kids, what are you curious about? What do you want to know more about? What are you already interested in? What questions can we ask about what you're interested in? The same thing is true with everybody. We just forget how to be kids when we get old.
Right.
And by old, I can mean 16 for some people and 72 for others.
Yeah.
What are you curious about? What do you want to
Mhm.
know about? What do you want to learn? What fascinates you? It could be plasma physics, and you might not have any kind of background in science, but if you start reading basic stuff about plasma physics and follow the parts that you find really interesting that you want to know more about, you're going to end up knowing a lot about plasma physics.
Mhm.
Or you might find some side thing that you never expected that's even more interesting than plasma physics that leads
Right.
you where you're supposed to be. I think you know where you're supposed to be when you land there. I think it's moments like looking at the Kaizen Muse website and going, oh my God, this is where I belong.
Yeah.
And even that is not necessarily a destination. That's part of the journey. It could
Yeah,
take you
exactly.
somewhere else. Follow your curiosity. Don't just be curious about something for 5 minutes and then go back to watching Arrested Development. Keep going, see where it takes
Yeah,
you.
that's great. That's really
Yeah.
great. Nancy, it has been so great talking to you. You are so interesting. You are just so smart and you do so many amazing, cool things. And I love that you're always encouraging. I even went through your website and you just have so many articles that you've written and essays about just encouraging people and having them, break down their fear. And I love that.
Me too, but I'm glad other people do. That's always good to hear. And it's
Yeah.
been great to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was so great.
You're so welcome.
That was just so much fun and so interesting. Thank you so much to Nancy for taking the time for letting me interview her. It was really just inspiring and enlightening. Isn't she just amazing? She has so many cool things to say. She's so encouraging. Guys, you have to go to her website. It is just full of great information. She has great articles, encouraging articles. I really loved going through them. Listen to her podcast. Follow her on Instagram. I am going to post all of her links into the show notes and check out her book, The Silver Child, on Amazon. I have to order a copy right away. I can't wait to read it. It sounds so interesting. So I'm going to put all those links in the show notes for you to check her out and check out her novel. If you are interested in being interviewed, please send me a message on either Instagram or my Facebook group. I'm available anywhere. So please follow me on those. I'm at According to Des on Instagram and on Facebook. Join my Facebook group. It's so much fun. It's a fun, interactive, encouraging, and supportive community. So it's facebook.com/groups according to Des. Feel free to post anything in there, go live in there, do whatever you want. Post a quote, post pictures, post a project you're working on, or even post questions. And people are pretty supportive and engaging in there. It is a small community, but it is very active and I love it. So I would love for you to join us there. So again, thank you so much to Nancy and thank you guys for listening and share this episode. Follow me on wherever this is posted. It's posted through Anchor, it's on Spotify. Thanks so much, and I will see you next time.